My name is Daniel Reeves, and I never believed in ghosts until I met one that refused to leave me alone. At first, it was only a flicker at the edge of my vision, a pale outline that vanished whenever I turned my head. But then I started waking up to find my bed moved, my skin wet with icy water, and footprints on my floor that didn't belong to me. I thought I was losing my mind until my reflection began moving when I didn't. The first time I noticed something strange, I convinced myself it was nothing, a trick of the eyes, a shadow from the streetlight outside, anything but what my mind whispered it might be. My room had always been the safest place in the world for me, a space where silence was comfort, where I could close the door and forget the world. But that night, the silence didn't feel comforting. It pressed against my ears, too heavy, too sharp, as though the quiet itself was watching me. My body wouldn't settle into sleep, and every time I closed my eyes I felt that something else was in the room. I turned on my side, facing the corner where the dresser stood. That was when I saw it. A figure, tall and pale, so faint I thought I was imagining it. It didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't even seem to be solid, yet it was there standing where nothing should have been. My heart thundered as I sat up quickly, fumbling for the lamp. The moment the light clicked on, the corner was empty. Just my dresser, stacked with old clothes and dust. My breathing came too fast, and sweat rolled down my back, even though the air felt icy cold. I kept the light on all night. The following day, I convinced myself I had only been tired. Lack of sleep, stress, and too much scrolling on my phone before bed. It had to be. But when I returned home that evening, something was off. My bed had shifted, just a few inches from where it normally rested against the wall. The carpet had faint drag marks beneath the legs, like someone had pulled it while I was gone. I told myself maybe I had moved it earlier without noticing. Maybe I had bumped into it. I ignored the unease crawling up my spine. Night came again, and with it, the heavy silence. I tried to drown it out with music, playing songs through my phone. But every now and then the sound seemed to fade, as if the room swallowed it. My eyelids grew heavy, exhaustion pulling at me until I drifted into restless sleep. I don't know how long I slept before I woke suddenly. My skin damp and chilled, my face was wet. For a second I thought I had been crying in my sleep, but when I wiped my cheek, it wasn't tears, it was cold, icy water. I looked up at the ceiling, expecting to see a leak, but it was perfectly dry. Not a single drop fell. Confused, I sat up, wiping the moisture from my arms and neck, and then I saw it. A wet footprint on the floor beside my bed. My throat closed up as I stared at it, my chest tightening. It was too large to be mine, too long, the toes sharp and uneven. My whole body froze, too afraid to move, as though the very act of breathing might draw its attention. Minutes ticked by, though they felt like hours. I forced myself to lean forward and reach toward the lamp. My fingers trembled as I flicked it on. The footprint was still there. The carpet glistened with moisture, though no other part of the floor was wet. My hands shook violently as I pulled the blanket over myself, though it offered no comfort. Every sound in the room seemed amplified, the ticking of the clock, the creak of the wood, the faint hum of the streetlight outside. But beneath those sounds, there was something else. A faint dragging noise, like cloth or skin scraping against the carpet. It moved across the floor, circling, slow and deliberate, stopping just at the edge of my bed. I squeezed my eyes shut, heart hammering, every muscle screaming for me to run. Yet I stayed still, paralyzed by the weight of its presence. When I opened my eyes again, the room was empty. The drag marks on the carpet led straight to the corner where I had seen the pale figure before. My lamp flickered once, twice, before going out completely, and in the darkness, the cold breath against my face told me I wasn't alone. I thought leaving the house would make things better. Four walls held the weight of fear too icily, and maybe, I told myself, if I got outside, into the open air, the strange heaviness would fade. I walked through the streets of town, blending into the ordinary sounds of life, cars passing, children shouting, people laughing on sidewalks. For a while, it almost worked. The noise covered the memory of that footprint, the dragging sound on my carpet, the cold breath in the dark, almost. But even in the daylight, I felt it, a constant pressure at my back, a sense that every step I took was mirrored by another. Shop windows reflected the street, flashing brief images as I passed. The first time I caught sight of it, I thought my mind was playing tricks. In the glass just behind me, there was a second figure walking in step with mine. It was tall, its shape blurred, its face smooth and empty. When I turned around, the sidewalk was clear. No one was there. I forced a laugh under my breath, pretending it was nothing. But every window showed the same thing, the phantom trailing me, one step behind. The more I tried to ignore it, the more obvious it became. Even inside crowded places, like the grocery store, the reflection appeared in freezers and mirrors, faceless and pale. People brushed past me, unaware, their movements breaking into the glass but never disturbing the phantom at my side. I stopped looking at reflections after that. I couldn't stand the thought of seeing it closer, watching me while no one else could. At home I covered every mirror with blankets and pulled the curtains shut, so tightly not a single line of light could cut through. I told myself I was safe now, hidden, unseen. but the feeling of being watched never left. At night, lying in bed, I could hear something faint, breathing, too soft to be mine, too steady to be the wind. Sometimes it was so close, I felt the air move against my ear. Sleep no longer came easily. When it did, I woke with a sense that someone had been standing over me. The air smelled wrong, stale, almost metallic. I'd find the curtains open when I was certain I'd closed them, and the blanket slid halfway across the room. On one of those nights I woke to see the curtains drawn wide, moonlight flooding in, silver and cold. I wanted to believe I had left them like that by mistake, but then I saw the reflection in the window. My heart thrashed as I stared. The glass showed me, but not the way it should have. I was not lying in bed. The reflection stood upright at the window, head tilted as if it had been waiting for me to wake. My body froze, unable to move, unable to scream, and then I saw it. Something pale and skeletal clutched at the reflection's shoulders, its fingers long and sharp, digging into my own mirrored skin. Its faceless head leaned close to the back of my reflection, pressing in, almost whispering into the place where my ear should have been. I tore my eyes away, shaking violently, sweat rolling down my face. When I forced myself to look again, the window showed only me in bed, wide-eyed and shaking. The skeletal hands were gone, but the glass still rippled faintly as though something had just stepped away from it. I scrambled out of bed, pulling the curtains shut so forcefully the rod shook and nearly came loose. I tried not to look at the window again, but even with the curtains closed I could feel it on the other side. Standing in the pale light, waiting. Its breath pressed through the fabric like a hand reaching for me. I wanted to believe I was imagining all of it, that my mind was slipping from lack of sleep, but deep down, I knew the truth. The phantom wasn't content to hide in shadows anymore. It wanted me to see it. It wanted me to know it was closer than ever. That night, when I finally collapsed into uneasy sleep, I dreamed of the window opening on its own. My reflection stepped out, silent, and stood by my bed. And something else, something formless and pale, followed behind it. I stopped sleeping almost entirely after that night. My body ached with exhaustion, my hands shook from the endless coffee I forced into myself, and my eyes burned from staying open too long, but it was better than closing them. Sleep felt like an invitation, a door left wide open for something I couldn't control. The phantom had grown bolder. It no longer waited in corners or hid behind glass. It appeared in the center of my room, hazy but present, a tall shifting mass of pale smoke and bone-like shapes. The more I stared, the clearer it became, as if acknowledging it made it stronger. The worst part wasn't seeing it. The worst part was the silence it carried. Whenever it appeared, the world around me seemed to vanish. The hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of my clock, even the sound of my own breathing are gone, replaced by a suffocating stillness that made me feel like the world had stopped existing. I tried to fight it. I turned the TV on, blasted music through headphones, even banged my fists against the wall just to hear some proof of life. But when it came, everything twisted. The sounds warped, slowing down into distorted echoes, until they fell apart completely. The silence always won. The air smelled strange whenever it arrived, not the sharp, metallic scent I had noticed before, but something sweeter, almost cloying. It reminded me of flowers left too long in stagnant water, a rotting sweetness that clung to the back of my throat and made me gag. I couldn't escape it, no matter how many windows I opened or candles I lit. The smell filled the house, thickening at night until it felt like I was breathing decay itself. One evening, when the air grew too heavy to stand, I decided to follow it. The smell seemed strongest in the lower part of the house, so I grabbed a flashlight and forced myself toward the basement door. Every step down felt like walking into a grave. Dust coated the air, cobwebs brushed against my arms, and the deeper I went, the colder it grew. My breath puffed out in faint clouds, and my flashlight flickered as though resisting the dark. At the bottom, I noticed the smell was unbearable, almost choking. I swept the light across the walls and my heart stopped. Words were scratched into the old wooden boards, letters jagged and uneven, as if carved by broken fingernails. They were simple, yet the sight of them froze my blood. "You invited it." I staggered back, gripping the railing, my legs threatening to give out. I hadn't invited anything. I hadn't done anything. My mind raced, replaying every night, every detail. Did leaving the curtains open count as an invitation? Did staring at it for too long? The thought that somehow I had allowed it in made my skin crawl. I backed away from the words, refusing to look at them again, but the smell lingered, the sweetness seeping into my skin, as if it had marked me. That night, the phantom did not appear in the corner. It appeared at the foot of my bed. I could see its shape clearly, now taller than any person, its limbs too long, too thin, shifting like smoke, but edged with bones that cracked and bent in unnatural ways. Its head tilted toward me, faceless, and the silence pressed so hard against my ears that I thought they would burst. I couldn't scream, I couldn't move, I could only stare. And then, for the first time, it moved closer. Slow, deliberate steps, its form rippling with every motion. The air grew colder with each footfall, the smell of rotting sweetness filling my lungs until I thought I would choke. I tried to move, but my body refused. My muscles locked, my chest burned, and every beat of my heart screamed at me to run. But I couldn't. I was trapped, frozen under its gaze. It stopped just beside my bed. The silence deepened, swallowing the last sound of my heart, and for a moment, I thought I had died. Then, the mattress dipped slightly, as though something invisible had leaned over me. I felt the weight of its presence pressing down, heavy and suffocating. The flashlight I kept by my bed flickered on by itself, a faint beam cutting across the room, and in that brief light, I saw something that almost broke me. The wall was no longer solid. It rippled like water, and inside it, faces stared out. Dozens of them, pressed against the surface, their mouths open in silent screams, eyes hollow, skin stretched thin, each one desperate, begging. One face looked familiar, almost like my own, distorted and broken. I reached out before I realized what I was doing, my fingers brushing the icy wall. A hand pressed back against mine from the other side. The light snapped off. The wall solidified. The silence thickened, and the phantom leaned so close that I could feel its cold presence sinking into my skin. I kept telling myself I had never invited it. I never wanted this thing near me, never opened any door willingly. But the phantom seemed determined to convince me otherwise. My phone became the first weapon it used against me. I would wake to find photographs saved in my gallery, pictures I hadn't taken. The images were always the same: myself lying in bed, my face slack in sleep, and the pale figure standing beside me, leaning over, its head tilted as though studying me. The timestamps made it worse. Each photo matched hours I remembered being awake, hours I thought I was staring into the dark, fighting to keep my eyes open. Yet the photos showed me unconscious, helpless, unaware of the phantom standing over me. I tried deleting them, but every time I cleared the gallery, more appeared. New photos replaced the old ones, angles shifting slightly, the figure moving closer each time. It wasn't just the images either. The phantom found its way into my head. I started hearing faint whispers, so soft I couldn't make out the words. They bled into my thoughts like water seeping through cracks. When I closed my eyes, the whispers grew louder, curling around my mind, pushing into dreams I didn't want. I would wake drenched in sweat, my heart hammering, bruises around my wrists, as if someone had held me down while I struggled. Time started to slip. Hours disappeared without explanation. I would come to my senses standing in different rooms of the house, sometimes outside in the yard with no memory of walking there. Once, I woke with dirt under my fingernails, though I hadn't touched the ground in days. The thought that I might be moving under its control, living in fragments it allowed me to have, broke something inside me. I no longer trusted my own body. The worst wasn't what it did to me physically. The worst was what it forced me to see. My walls, once plain and ordinary, began to ripple at night. I would sit in my bed, hugging myself, and watch as the paint shifted like water stirred by unseen hands. Faces pressed outward, dozens of them, distorted and pale, their mouths stretched in silent screams. Their eyes were empty, but I felt their pain. They weren't random. They were trapped. I could see them reaching, clawing at the surface, begging to be let out. One night, I made the mistake of touching the wall. My hand shook as I pressed my palm against the rippling surface. It was ice cold, burning cold, and the second my skin met it, a hand pushed back from the other side. Thin, bony fingers clawed at my palm, desperate, pulling, trying to drag me in. I yanked away, stumbling back, but the handprint lingered on the wall, dark and wet, slowly fading as if absorbed into the house itself. After that, the whispers grew clearer. They no longer sounded like a distant hum. They formed words I didn't want to understand. They spoke of belonging, of surrender, of opening myself completely. Every corner of the house echoed with them, overlapping voices that grew louder the more I tried to resist. Sometimes I thought I recognized one of them, my own voice, distorted, begging me to stop fighting. The phantom itself grew closer. It no longer stayed at the edges of the room. It stood by the bed, leaned over my shoulder when I tried to read, appeared in the reflection of my phone screen when it went dark. Its form still shifted, smoke and bone and shadow, but I could feel its presence filling every breath I took. It was no longer content to haunt me. It wanted inside me. One evening I blacked out completely. When I woke, I was standing in front of the mirror in the bathroom, the only one I hadn't covered. My reflection smiled at me, though my lips didn't move. My eyes in the glass were wrong, darker, hollow, filled with something that wasn't mine. My knees buckled as I fell against the sink, staring at that false version of myself. The phantom wasn't just haunting me anymore. It was using me. I tried to look away, but my reflection didn't stop. It kept staring, smiling wider, until the glass rippled like water. The surface bulged outward, and for a moment, I thought it would step through, dragging me in. I stumbled back, but the smile lingered in the glass long after my face had gone pale and trembling. The phantom had already found its way into the walls. Now it was pushing through mirrors, through me, and I realized there was no safe place left in the house. No corner untouched, no moment unclaimed. That night, when I lay down, the whispers stopped. The silence was worse. The phantom didn't appear in the corner or at the foot of the bed. I felt it inside the mattress, Beneath me, the springs shifting as though something crawled closer from within. And then the bed dipped, and cold fingers pressed against my back. I no longer know how many days have passed. Time feels fractured, broken into pieces I can't put back together. I live in fragments now, moments of awareness slipping between long stretches of blackness. Sometimes I open my eyes and find myself standing in the hallway, sometimes in the yard, sometimes staring into mirrors that I don't remember uncovering. The phantom no longer waits at the edges of my life. It has stepped into me, around me, through me. I feel it in my skin, crawling just beneath the surface, like a second presence sharing the same body. I try to resist, but resistance feels pointless. The more I fight, the weaker I become. The air around me is always cold, even when the sun shines. The smell of rotting sweetness clings to me everywhere I go, seeping into my clothes, into my hair, until I can taste it at the back of my throat. I wash myself endlessly, but the scent never fades. It isn't on me, it's in me. Sometimes I catch glimpses of myself where I shouldn't. In the dark reflection of a turned-off television, I see my body standing when I am sitting. In the glass of a framed photo, my face blinks when I haven't moved. My reflection no longer belongs to me. It watches me the way the phantom once did, patient, silent, waiting. The worst moment came when I saw my body lying in bed while I stood in the doorway. For a long time, I couldn't process it. I just stared, my heart hammering, every nerve in my body screaming that something was wrong. My body was too still, the chest not rising, the skin pale and slack. And then it opened its eyes. My eyes, they rolled toward me with a slow, unnatural movement, and a smile spread across its face, sharp and wide, too wide for a human mouth. I wanted to scream, but the sound stuck in my throat. My double sat up, and the phantom leaned close to it, wrapping its thin, skeletal hands around its shoulders. I stumbled back into the hall, shaking, but the figure in bed didn't follow. It only watched me with my own hollow gaze until the darkness of the hallway swallowed me. I didn't remember going to sleep, but when I woke again, I was back in the bed, alone. I no longer trust what I see. I no longer trust what I feel. Sometimes my hands move before I decide to move them. Sometimes my head turns sharply to stare at corners I don't want to look at. Sometimes I hear my own voice whispering from across the room, repeating words I can't fully understand. It isn't haunting me anymore. It's merging with me. The walls still ripple at night, and the faces still press outward. They look clearer now. I see their pain, their desperation, their mouths shaping words I almost recognize. I wonder if they are people like me, people who tried to resist until the phantom took them completely. Perhaps I am just another face waiting to be added to the wall, my body hollowed out for it to use. I've stopped eating. Food tastes wrong, metallic and bitter, as though it's rotting the moment it touches my tongue. Water doesn't quench my thirst. Sleep doesn't rest me. Everything human inside me is fading. I think the phantom is consuming me slowly, replacing me piece by piece. Soon there will be nothing left to fight with. Last night I caught my shadow moving against the wall. The lamp beside me was steady, but the shadow stretched in the wrong direction. Too long, too twisted. It smiled at me, though my face did not. I turned off the light, but the shadow stayed, glowing faintly in the dark. I realized then that I no longer control even the shape I cast. I don't know what will happen when it finishes taking me. Maybe I'll vanish into the walls with the others. Maybe I'll become another reflection, another shadow, another figure haunting someone else's home. Maybe I'll still be here, alive but locked inside, watching through eyes that no longer belong to me. If you're hearing this, it means I'm already gone. Or worse, it means I'm not, and the phantom has found a way to speak through me. I can't tell which is true anymore. My thoughts aren't only mine. Every word I think feels doubled, echoed by another voice I can't silence. Check your room. Look to the corners, to the mirrors, to the glass. If you see something behind you, don't look too long. Don't listen to the whispers. Don't let it in. Because if you do, you won't know where you end and it begins. And when the moment comes that you see yourself lying in bed while you stand in the doorway, it'll be too late. That smile won't be yours, and the thing behind it will already be inside you.